Welcome to my channel. Thank you for showing up and giving me your time today. It means a lot. Today we will learn how to talk about self-study in English. You try to explain how you study on your own, and your words come out flat. I study alone. That's all you say. But your real journey is so much bigger than that one sentence. Does this happen to you too? Have you ever felt embarrassed because you couldn't explain your own hard work in English? Tell me in the comments right now, yes or no. Stay till the end, because the last lesson gives you a complete story you can use anywhere. Here we go, Lesson 1. What self-study really means. You open your mouth to explain how you study English, and only one sentence comes out. I study alone. That's it, nothing more. The person nods politely and changes the topic. But inside you, there was so much more to say. You wanted to tell them about the late nights, the notebooks full of new words, the videos you watched twice just to understand one sentence. All of that effort, and it got squeezed into 3 flat words. That's not fair to you, and today that stops. There's a big difference between saying I study by myself and saying I'm a self-taught learner. The first one sounds like an excuse. The second one sounds like a title you earned. Native speakers use the word self-taught all the time. You'll hear it in job interviews. You'll see it on LinkedIn profiles. You'll hear it when someone proudly says, I'm a self-taught painter or I'm a self-taught coder. It's not a fancy word. It's a respected word. And it fits you perfectly. Try saying this instead. I'm a self-taught English speaker. Feel that? It already sounds stronger. Or you could say, I study English independently. This tells people you don't wait for a teacher to push you. You push yourself. Another strong one is, I'm self-motivated when it comes to learning English. This single sentence tells someone you don't need pressure from others. Your motivation comes from inside you. That's powerful, and people respect that instantly. You can also say, I take charge of my own learning. This sentence shows control. It shows that you are not lost. You are not confused about your path. You built your own path, step by step, without anyone holding your hand. And that deserves respect, not a shrug. Here's something worth remembering. Changing just one small phrase in your sentence can change how people see you completely. Instead of saying, I study alone, which sounds a little sad and lonely, say, I'm a self-taught learner, which sounds proud and strong. Same story, same effort. Completely different feeling. Words carry weight. Choose the ones that carry your effort properly. Now it's your turn to practice this. Take a moment and write one sentence using the word self-taught. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be yours. Drop it in the comments below. Writing it down helps your brain remember it far better than just reading it silently. This lesson gave you your foundation. You now have real words to describe yourself as a learner. But knowing the right word is only the beginning. You'll soon learn how to explain why you even started this journey in the first place. And trust me, that story is more powerful than you think. Lesson 2. Talking about why you started self-studying. Every big journey has a starting point. A moment when something inside you said, enough is enough. I need to change this. That moment matters. And most learners never talk about it. They jump straight to "I study English" without ever explaining what pushed them there in the first place. But that starting point is actually the most powerful part of your story. It's the part that makes people lean in and actually listen. Sarah lost a job opportunity because her English wasn't strong enough during the interview. She sat in her room that night, replaying the interview in her head, feeling that heavy mix of anger and embarrassment. The next morning, she opened her laptop and started learning on her own. No classes, no teacher, just her, determined to never feel that way again. Now when people ask her why she started, she says, "What pushed me to start was a job interview that didn't go the way I wanted." One sentence. And suddenly her whole journey makes sense to whoever is listening. You can use this same kind of sentence for your own story. I realized I needed to improve when, fill in your own moment there. Maybe it was a conversation you couldn't follow. Maybe it was a movie you watched without subtitles and understood nothing. Maybe it was scrolling through videos and feeling left out because everyone else understood the jokes and you didn't. Whatever it was, that moment is your beginning, and it deserves to be spoken about. Another strong way to start your story is saying, "It all began when." This phrase pulls people into your timeline. It makes your story feel like a movie instead of a report. It all began when I moved to a new city and realized nobody spoke my language. Or, it all began when I watched an interview and couldn't understand a single word. These sentences create a picture in someone's mind. They stop being bored and start being curious about what happens next in your story. There's also a phrase full of strength. I decided to take matters into my own hands. Say that slowly. Feel how much control it holds. It tells people you didn't wait for permission. You didn't wait for the perfect course or the perfect teacher. You just started, alone, maybe scared, but moving forward anyway. That sentence alone can shift how someone sees your entire journey. Your reason for starting is not a small detail. It's the heart of your story. Without it, you're just a person who studies English. With it, you're a person who faced something difficult and chose to grow from it. That difference matters more than most people realize. Now think about your own beginning. What was the moment that pushed you to start learning on your own? Write it in the comments using one sentence structure from today. Even if it feels small to you, share it. Someone else reading it might realize their reason matters too. You now have the words to explain your beginning with real emotion behind it. But a story doesn't stop at the beginning. Next comes the part where your daily effort actually shows up. And that part is where your discipline starts speaking louder than your words. Lesson 3. Describing your study routine like a native speaker. Somebody asks you a simple question. So what does your study routine look like? And your mind goes blank. You know you study. You know you put in hours. But turning that into clear English words feels harder than the studying itself. This lesson fixes that gap completely. Start with this phrase. I set aside an hour every day for English. This tells people you plan your time on purpose. It's not random. It's not whenever I feel like it. It's a decision you make daily. Another useful one is, I stick to a schedule. Short sentence, strong meaning. It tells people you don't skip days easily. You show up even when you don't feel like it. And that's exactly what makes a self-taught learner different from someone who just talks about learning. Here's a small but important detail. Many learners write every day as one word when they actually mean every day as two words. Every day describes something ordinary like everyday clothes or everyday problems. Every day means each single day, one after another. So you say, I study English every day, not I study English every day. This tiny fix makes your writing look far more polished, and native speakers notice it immediately. Let's talk about Ali. Ali wakes up 30 minutes earlier than he needs to. Before his coffee even finishes brewing, he opens his notebook and reviews 5 new words from the day before. He doesn't call this a big achievement. He just calls it his morning habit. When someone asks him how he studies, he simply says, I carve out time before work every morning. That phrase, carve out time, means you create space in a busy schedule on purpose. Even when your day is already full, it shows effort. It shows priority. Ali also says something else worth remembering. I'm consistent with my practice. Not perfect, not extreme, just consistent. That word alone carries so much weight in English conversations because natives respect consistency more than intensity. Studying for 10 hours one day and then disappearing for 2 weeks means nothing compared to 20 minutes every single day without fail. Think about your own day right now. When do you actually sit down and study? Maybe it's on your lunch break. Maybe it's right before bed when the house finally goes quiet. Whatever time it is, that time belongs to you, and it deserves a proper English sentence describing it. Write your study time in the comments below, using one phrase from today's lesson. Let others see your routine and maybe get inspired by it. A routine sounds boring on the surface, but a routine is actually proof of commitment. It's the quiet part of your story that nobody sees, yet it's the part building your fluency brick by brick. Once you can explain your routine clearly, the next natural question becomes how you actually study during that time. And that's exactly where we're headed next. Lesson 4. Talking about your study methods and techniques. Studying and studying well are two very different things. You can sit with a book for hours and remember nothing. Or you can study for 20 focused minutes and remember everything. The difference lies in the method, and today you'll learn the exact words to describe your method with confidence. One powerful phrase is, I use spaced repetition. This means you review words again and again, but not all at once. You see a word today, then again after 2 days, then again after a week. Your brain locks it in permanently instead of forgetting it after one glance. Saying this phrase tells someone you understand how memory actually works, not just that you memorize randomly. Another strong phrase is, I immerse myself in English content. Immerse means to surround yourself completely with something. So this sentence tells people you don't just study English for 30 minutes and then switch it off. You keep it around you all day. Music in English, videos in English, even your phone settings change to English. Your brain stays inside the language even when you're not actively studying. There's also I practice active recall. This means instead of reading your notes again and again, you close the book and try to remember the information from memory alone. It feels harder in the moment, but it builds real, lasting knowledge. Compare that to just reading notes passively, which feels easy but disappears from your memory within hours. I shadow native speakers is another phrase worth learning. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and repeating right after them, copying their rhythm, their pronunciation, their pauses. It trains your mouth and your ear together, which reading alone can never do. And one more valuable phrase: I journal in English. This means writing your daily thoughts, your small wins, even your frustrations, all in English. It doesn't need perfect grammar. It just needs consistency. Over time, this single habit builds your writing fluency without you even realizing it's happening. Now notice something important here. There's a massive difference between saying I watch English videos and saying I immerse myself in English content daily. Both sentences describe the same action, but one sounds basic and the other sounds intentional and advanced. The words you choose can make simple habits sound like real strategies, because that's exactly what they are. Pick one method from today that you haven't tried yet. Maybe it's shadowing. Maybe it's active recall. Try it today, just once, and comment below which one you picked and how it felt. Small experiments like this often turn into lifelong habits without you planning for it. Your methods are the engine behind your progress. But even the strongest engine sometimes stalls. And what happens when your motivation drops? When progress feels slow? When you want to give up? That's exactly what we're going to talk about next, because that part of your story matters just as much as your success. Lesson 5. Talking about struggles and challenges. There's a moment every self-taught learner knows too well. You've been studying for weeks. You felt proud. And then suddenly nothing seems to be working anymore. The words don't stick. The motivation disappears. You sit there wondering if all this effort is even worth it. This feeling has a name in English, and today you'll learn how to describe it properly instead of just staying silent about it. The phrase "I hit a plateau" describes this exact moment. A plateau is flat land, no hills, no progress, just a long stretch of nothing changing. When you say "I hit a plateau," people instantly understand you were improving, and then suddenly you stopped feeling any improvement at all. It's not failure. It's just a part of the process that almost every learner experiences at some point. Another honest phrase is, I struggle to stay motivated. Simple words, but powerful meaning. It admits something real without sounding weak. Native speakers respect this kind of honesty far more than someone pretending their journey was easy from day one. Nobody's journey is easy. Saying it out loud actually builds trust with the person listening to you. Sometimes life gets busy, and studying slips away completely. For this, you can say, I fell off track. This phrase paints a picture. Imagine walking on a path and suddenly stepping off it without even noticing. That's exactly what happens with routine sometimes. Work gets heavy, family needs attention, and English quietly gets pushed aside for weeks, sometimes months. There's also a deeper phrase worth learning. I had to push through burnout. Burnout means you're mentally and physically exhausted from trying too hard for too long without rest. It's more serious than just losing motivation. It means your mind genuinely needed a break, and pushing through it took real strength, not just discipline. And finally, one of the most honest and relatable phrases: I lost momentum but got back on track. This tells a complete mini story in a single sentence. You lost your rhythm. Life happened. But you didn't stay stuck there. You returned, maybe slower than before, but you returned. Picture using these together in one answer. Honestly, I hit a plateau around month 3. I struggled to stay motivated for a while, and I even fell off track for a couple weeks, but I pushed through it and got back on track. That's not a weak answer. That's a real answer. And real answers are what actually connect with people. Struggling doesn't make your journey less impressive, it makes it human. Every fluent speaker you admire went through this exact same feeling at some point, even if they never talked about it publicly. Comment below one struggle you faced during your own learning journey. Use one phrase from today if you can. Someone reading your comment might realize they're not alone in this feeling. Talking about struggle takes courage, but talking about how you overcame that struggle takes something even bigger. And that's exactly the part of your story we're moving into next. Lesson 6. Talking about setbacks and how you overcame them. Naming your struggle is one thing. Explaining how you fought back against it is something completely different and something far more powerful. This is the part of your story where people stop just feeling sorry for you and start actually respecting you. This lesson gives you the exact words for that shift. Start with the phrase, I picked myself back up. Picture that sentence for a second. It shows a fall and then a rise right after it. It doesn't hide the fall, it just refuses to stay there. When you say this in English, people hear strength, not weakness, even though you're talking about a hard time. Another strong option is, I turned things around. This phrase works well when your progress completely reversed direction because of something you changed. Maybe you switched your study method. Maybe you found a better routine. Whatever it was, this sentence tells people that a real shift happened, not just a small improvement. There's a phrase that shows maturity too. I didn't give up. I adjusted my approach. This is different from just trying harder with the same broken method. It means you were smart enough to notice something wasn't working and brave enough to change it instead of blaming yourself for the failure. That kind of thinking is exactly what separates learners who quit from learners who eventually become fluent. You can also say, that setback actually taught me something valuable. This single sentence flips the entire story. Instead of a setback being purely negative, it becomes a lesson. Maybe it taught you patience. Maybe it taught you that consistency matters more than intensity. Whatever the lesson was, naming it out loud shows real growth, not just survival. And one final phrase worth remembering. I learned to be patient with myself. This is deeply honest, and honestly, most learners need to hear this one the most. Progress in a language rarely moves in a straight line. Some weeks feel amazing. Other weeks feel like nothing is working at all. Learning to accept that rhythm instead of fighting against it constantly is its own kind of growth. Think about a learner who almost quit completely after 2 months of frustration. Nothing seemed to stick. Every video felt too fast. Every conversation felt impossible to follow. But instead of stopping completely, this learner slowed down, changed the method, started with easier content, and rebuilt confidence step by step. Months later, that same learner could hold a full conversation without freezing. That's not luck. That's exactly what "I turned things around" sounds like in real life. Now think about your own setback, a moment where things got hard and you almost stopped completely. What did you do differently to keep going? Comment it below using one phrase from today. Your comeback story might be exactly what someone else needs to read today to keep going themselves. Your comeback shows people who you really are underneath the struggle. But every comeback eventually leads somewhere, and that somewhere is progress you can actually see and feel. Lesson 7. Talking about your progress and results. There comes a moment when you notice it yourself. A word you used to struggle with just comes out naturally. A sentence you used to translate in your head now flows without thinking. Nobody announces this moment. It happens quietly, but it deserves to be spoken about. And today you'll learn exactly how to talk about it with confidence instead of staying quiet about your own growth. Start with the phrase, "I've made huge strides." Strides means steps, big, meaningful steps forward, not tiny ones. When you say this, you're not bragging. You're simply stating a fact about your own effort finally showing results. It's a phrase filled with quiet confidence, and native speakers use it often when talking about real personal growth. Another beautiful phrase is, "I've come a long way." Think about everything behind that sentence. The late nights, the plateau, the burnout, the setbacks you pushed through. All of that sits quietly behind these 5 simple words. It doesn't need extra explanation. People instantly understand there's a whole journey packed inside that one sentence. You can also say, "My fluency has improved significantly." This sentence works well in more formal situations, like interviews or professional conversations. It sounds measured and confident without sounding boastful. Significantly is a strong word here. It tells people the improvement isn't small or imagined. It's real and it's noticeable. Sometimes progress feels harder to describe because it happens slowly. For that, use "I can see real progress." Simple, honest, and true. This phrase works even when you're still learning, still improving, still not fully fluent yet. It doesn't claim perfection. It just claims movement forward, which is exactly what matters most. There's also a relaxed, natural way to say it. It's paying off. Short, casual, powerful. This phrase works perfectly in everyday conversations with friends. It tells people that all those hours you put in weren't wasted. Something is finally returning to you because of the effort you gave consistently. Here's something worth understanding clearly. There's a real difference between bragging and confidently sharing progress. Bragging sounds like "I'm basically fluent now." It was easy. Confident sharing sounds like "I've come a long way, though I still have things to work on." The second one earns respect. The first one often pushes people away. Confidence paired with humility always lands better than confidence alone. Imagine someone asks you, "How is your English improving?" You could simply say, "Honestly, I've made huge strides over the past few months. My listening has improved significantly, and I can finally follow conversations without translating in my head first." That answer sounds real. It sounds earned, because it is. Now think about your own progress. Even if it feels small to you, a word you finally understand without checking, a sentence you spoke without hesitating first. Comment it below using one phrase from today. Celebrating small progress out loud often makes it feel real for the first time. Your progress deserves to be spoken about properly, not hidden behind modesty. But growth doesn't stop at your own progress. Soon, other people will start asking you for advice, and how you respond to that moment matters just as much as your own journey did. Lesson 8. Giving advice and recommending self-study tips to others. At some point, someone notices your progress and turns to you with a question. How did you learn English on your own? Can you help me too? This moment feels different from anything before it. You're no longer just a learner. You're someone whose words actually carry weight now. This lesson gives you the exact phrases to answer that moment with real confidence. Start with, if I were you, I'd start with. This phrase works beautifully because it doesn't sound like a lecture. It sounds like advice from someone who's actually been there. You're not telling someone what to do from a distance. You're speaking from your own path, and that makes your words far more trustworthy than any textbook advice. Another useful phrase is, one thing that really helped me was, this is personal and specific advice always lands better than general advice. Instead of saying just practice more, which nobody finds useful, you might say, one thing that really helped me was shadowing native speakers every morning. Now the person has something exact they can actually try today. You can also say, I'd recommend. This phrase sounds slightly more formal, and it works well when someone is seriously asking for direction, not just casual conversation. I'd recommend starting with easier videos before jumping into fast native content. Clear, direct, useful. There's also a warmer, more personal phrase. Something that worked wonders for me is, this one carries excitement in it. It tells the listener you're not just repeating generic advice you read somewhere. You're sharing something that genuinely changed your own journey, and that honesty makes people actually want to try it themselves. Picture a friend messaging you, asking exactly this. How should I learn English by myself? I don't know where to start. You could reply, honestly, one thing that really helped me was journaling every night in English, even just a few sentences. I'd recommend starting small instead of trying to do everything at once. Something that worked wonders for me was shadowing native speakers, even though it felt awkward at first. If I were you, I'd focus on consistency before anything else. Notice how natural that sounds. It doesn't feel like a lesson. It feels like real advice from someone who actually lived through it. Giving advice like this does something important beyond helping the other person. It reminds you how far you've actually come. Sometimes we forget our own progress until we're forced to explain it to someone else, standing exactly where we once stood, confused and unsure where to begin. Think of someone in your life still struggling with English right now. Tag them in the comments and give them one piece of advice using a phrase from today. Your words might be the exact push they needed to finally start their own journey. Sharing advice completes something important in your story. It shows growth, confidence, and generosity all at once. But there's still one final piece missing, And that's putting your entire journey together into one complete story you can tell from beginning to end. Lesson 9. Telling your full self-study story. Everything you've learned so far has been building toward this exact moment. Separate pieces, separate phrases, separate parts of your journey. Now it's time to bring all of it together into one complete story. The kind of story that leaves a real impression when someone asks about your English learning journey. Connector words are what turns separate sentences into a real story instead of a random list of facts. To be honest is a great place to start. It signals that something genuine is coming next, not a rehearsed answer. Looking back works beautifully when you're about to reflect on your whole journey from a distance, seeing the full picture instead of just one moment. What really changed things points directly to the turning point in your story, the exact moment everything shifted. Since then, moves your story forward in time smoothly, and nowadays brings the listener right back to the present, right back to who you are today. Let's put this together into a full answer, the kind you could actually say out loud in an interview or a conversation. To be honest, I started learning English on my own after a job interview that didn't go well. I set aside an hour every day and stayed consistent with my practice. I immersed myself in English content and practiced active recall instead of just reading passively around month 3. I hit a plateau and honestly thought about quitting, but I didn't give up. I adjusted my approach instead. What really changed things was switching to shadowing native speakers every morning. Since then, I've made huge strides. My listening has improved significantly, and nowadays, I can hold full conversations without freezing up. Read that answer again slowly. Notice how it flows. It has a beginning, a struggle, a turning point, and a result. It sounds like a real person speaking, not a list of grammar rules stacked together. That's exactly the difference between memorizing vocabulary and actually owning your story. This is the story you can use in interviews when someone asks about your skills. This is the story you can use in casual conversations when someone asks how you got so good at English. This is the story that shows people exactly who you are, not just what you know. Take a few minutes today and write your own version of this story. Use your own reason for starting, your own routine, your own struggle, your own turning point, your own progress. It doesn't need to be perfect on the first try. Just make it yours and keep improving it every time you say it out loud. Every single person who speaks English fluently today once stood exactly where you're standing right now, unsure how to explain their own journey. The only difference between them and you is that they kept practicing their story until it became natural. You now have everything you need to do the exact same thing. If this video helped you find your words, hit subscribe right now. I post videos every week to help you speak English with real confidence. Like this video if you learned even one new phrase today. And in the comments, write just one sentence about your own self-study journey using anything you learned today. I will personally read your comments. See you in the next video.